Yo, 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 it's your boy Swag, and I'm back today. I'll be talking about an interview I seen with Salty White, Underbelly, featuring Ike Taylor, you know. And I didn't even know who Ike Taylor was, but I thought I'd bring y'all the story and tell y'all about at least the first half of the story, and you can go check the rest out. But Ike Taylor was the co-founder of the Gangster Disciples. It's a wild, crazy story, and like some of this I heard before, but I never really got the full details. And the guy himself, Ike Taylor, is telling his story. I'm gonna have it in the description. But man, he started off just breaking down his life story. And then he jumped right into when he got into the streets. Then he talked about him giving the laws, like certain laws within the Gangster Disciples. He told stories about why he did these laws. Um, it's crazy because I can relate everything he's saying to my life story. And one thing he kept talking about was the media. The media is the most dangerous thing to brown skinned people. He called brown skinned people blacks. You know, he said what he see in social media is the same thing he seen when he was a kid. And he said the propaganda in the media is still the same, even though we are able to do certain things on social media, even though social media kind of helps shape our life. He's basically saying when kids see the George Floyds and other guys getting killed by the police, that it's the same stigma that was going on when he was little. He started off saying um, that he never once wanted to be a gangster. It just happened. He a product of his environment, and that's so important because he said that media was the reason that he chose to do some of the things that he did, because at that time they had Superfly, um, they had a lot of other things that was going on that was in pimp. Yeah, I said Superfly, so they had the pimp thing going on. He said at that time pimping was hard, pimping that east. You know what I'm saying? Um, and he said the Gangster Disciples actually started off as Supreme Gents, was short for gentlemen. They started off as Supreme Gentlemen, and they turned into Gangster Disciples on the journey to what they was trying to do. So what was they trying to do, Swag? Well, Ike said that the mission was to keep this high spirit gentleman thing going. He said they started off as dancers, just out on the streets and empowering, being a gentleman and doing the right things for the community, and they was the Supreme Gents. And once they got older, they kind of clashed with the older heads because the older heads was kind of telling them what they should do versus what they wanted to do, and it wasn't really nothing on no gang stuff at the time. It was just that that's what they mission was at the time. He talked a lot about who his heroes was and why the Supreme Gents was different from the regular pimps and the regular guys in the neighborhood. And this was before the drug era. He said his heroes and the people he looked up to was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panther leaders, and people of that stage of empowerment for black people. He said that him being a leader of the black people was something he always wanted to be as a kid. And he said that a teacher told him, "No, you shouldn't try to do that," But in his own right, he was still able to revolutionize everything that was going on. Man, it's such a deep story. I'm just giving you a quick cut about what it's about. So, he talked about how Chicago was back then versus how it is now, and how the gang limits was on a bigger stretch. Like there's blocks, but then it was bigger areas. I know you probably heard some rappers say from state to lake. So in the older days, that's what he was kind of learned to like how the gangs was from state to lake, and they was all over the city, you know. And he said he never really played the South Side. That he used to always travel and move around and meet different people, and that was part of his success was knowing both sides. He said he risked his life for connecting both sides on the principles of what he believed in, and that they chased him off the block, shot him, and everything, but he was still able to put in this formation of Supreme Gents that went to the Gangster Disciples. You know, um, during the time that like the Supreme Gents was handling things in the community, which I heard about these things, and when I heard about it, they said it was the GDs, the Gangster Disciples, where it comes out that at this particular time they was calling themselves the Supreme Gents, which they had community centers, they had teachers, black teachers, they gave out food, they gave out clothes. He testified that during this time that it was so good that it actually stopped the violence that was going on. And at that time, this was like I think he said it was after the civil rights era that like people was attacking the police, and it kind of helped them work something with like helping people in the neighborhood not attack the police. Like these are things that's coming out this guy's mouth, and it's like once you hear it, and then it give you a different perception of what that time was really like. And all these programs is the same thing that the government do today. The government took their ideas and programs and incorporated into their corporation to make the inner city kind of what it was at the time. Like you hear like back in the day, we used to have community centers, and it was more for the kids to do, but it was more for the kids to do because of the Supreme Gents. I'm not gonna say all around the world, but we're talking about far as what he was talking about Chicago. And I know Chicago is a big area where all the people migrated to, like how he said, and the influence how big Chicago was. So he said they started those programs and really helped the community. It wasn't about being gangster. And like a little earlier, I said that how they got into it with the older folks um, was that certain things was going on, but they wanted them to move a certain way. And at this time in Chicago, he was saying that Chicago Tribune was a black-owned company, and it was the blacks newspaper outlet. And in this newspaper outlet, him and Larry Hoover, a person he been knowing since 8 years old, was in this newspaper. And in the newspaper, at this time, there was no black leaders in Chicago. And in this newspaper, it said the next two leaders of the blacks here in Chicago would be Ike Taylor and Larry Hoover, which later on kind of gave a foresight of what happened. But like how he said, at that time, what they was doing was so different and so powerful that they had to be stopped. And he said when that came out, he was only 18, but at the time he took it in celebration of doing the right thing, but he didn't know how that was going to have an effect on his life. And he said he'll be arrested by the age of 21 years old, you know. And he talked about being arrested and how it was during that time. He talked about getting out of jail right after that. So he ended up going to jail for a murder. So once he came home, he had rewrote the laws. And a lot of people on the outside looking in, me too, because I really don't know, you know, you would think everything was Larry Hoover and how things was presented to the world, because like how he said, he got 200 years for conspiracy or something that wasn't nothing, and he never did nothing. Now, that I can't say, But this is his friend since 8. He said he didn't do nothing. Like, he never witnessed him do a murder, and all the murders that he was charged with was conspiracy, that he told somebody to do it and they did it on his behalf. But what he's saying is it didn't happen that way, you know. And I forgot what I was getting. I got train of thought. I seen something outside. Car drove by like crazy, but basically he got out of jail and he rewrote the laws of growth and development because he learned his growth in jail. You know what I'm saying? And the development was going good. The growth and development was going good. He said, I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but he said it was going good, and that's when the drugs came in. That's kind of like how he said he fell victim of being a product of the environment, and how social media played the blacks at that time, man. Right now, today, he said that it's still happening. Social media is keeping people eyes off the goal of oneness. Y'all go check that interview out. I'm gonna leave it as that. He get into like laws he made and why he made them. He gets into deep detail about Larry Hoover and who he was, and um, he can't believe he got 100 years, and he break down like territories and what happened at the time he was out. Y'all really gotta go check that out. I just want to give it a quick breakdown. It's like an hour and a half long, just in case you didn't want to watch that hour and a half long. I gave you a quick rundown of him and Larry Hoover starting the Gangster Disciples organization, which originally started off as the Supreme Gents, short for gentlemen, because they was about gentleman things. These guys looked up to the Malcolm X, Martin Luther Kings, and the leaders of the Panther Party, and that's what they based their organization upon. In the community, they was able to start a center, have teachers come in and teach black kids, feed them, clothe the neighborhood, and just do a lot of different things. And one thing he said was that he looked up to these people. They was his role models, but he glad that he didn't get assassinated like them. That's just something to think about. When you think about like making change, you gotta think about death coming with it. He was aware of what he was doing. He just said he glad he didn't get assassinated. They gave Larry Hoover 200 years for the change that was bringing and becoming powerful people. It's your boy Swag. Go check out that video. It's in the description. Ike Taylor, co-founder of the Gangster Disciples. It's your boy Swag, and I'm out.